It's Monday, and a new week in crypto is getting underway. Here with all the top stories to get you up to speed, it's the Coin Bureau News. Today's headlines. Rate cuts coming. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell signals that the pivot is near. How much will they cut by? Crypto and politics. Vice President Harris apparently plans to support crypto-friendly policies, while RFK Jr. endorses Trump. Will crypto be the big winner of the upcoming election? Telegram founder arrested. French authorities detain Pavel Durov in a move that could have profound consequences for free speech. What's he accused of, and what does it mean for Toncoin? Countries going crypto. Brazil approves a spot Solana ETF, the UAE legalizes salary payments in crypto, and Russia plans to build its own exchange. Bitcoin dominance continues to climb. Does this mean no alt season? And a look at last week's top performing altcoins, some dates for your diary, the week's top tweets, and your feedback. This is the Coin Bureau News, live. Welcome, everyone. It is Monday once again. It is time for Coin Bureau News once again, and we are live once again. Second week of going live. It's going well. How are you, Nick?
Happy Monday, man. Good. Yeah. Excited for another try at this thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. As you can see, if you tuned in last week, it was the first ever live edition of the Coin Bureau News, and it was such a success. We are doing it again. We are doing it live. So lots to talk about today. My name is Guy.
And my name is Nick. And let's dive in with the first story. And this is, of course, a macro update. And guys, guess what? I got something to tell you. Printer is coming. Brace yourself. Printer is coming. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep. Last week we had on Friday, obviously, the Jackson Hole, and Jerome Powell spoke at the Jackson Hole Summit. Obviously, this gathering of all these central bankers. And it seems he was striking a very dovish tone. And it seems like it's all but guaranteed we're going to have a cut and a pivot in September. And now the question is, well, how many are we going to be? 50 basis points or 25 basis points?
What do you personally think? I mean, do you think they'll go? Do you think they'll go hard?
No, I think they'll probably go 25 to start. Because it's just ease into it. Obviously, like the Fed said, like he's always said, data dependent, right? And we've got some important updates coming, or data points this week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got PCE numbers, which we'll get to. That's the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, and this will come out on Friday. So we'll have to see what those numbers are like, if they're above or below expectations. If it's below expectations, then obviously that means that inflation is cooling faster, and then the Fed can be more, lenient and potentially look to a 50 basis point cut. But the interest rate futures markets are currently pricing in about a 36% chance of a 50 basis point, and 60 something of a 25 basis point cut. So it seems like the markets are kind of like angling towards a 25 basis point cut. And obviously, another component there is, of course, job market, right? Mm-hmm. The dual mandate, inflation on the one hand and the job market on the other. And he was slightly concerned about job market, right? And he said the dovish tone said they're going to try and support the labor market and all that.
I've got the quote here, actually. Everything we can to support a strong labor market as we make further progress towards price stability.
Exactly. So that's the point. It's now focusing on the other part of the dual mandate. Inflation has come down reasonably. It's going towards the 2% target. They hope it will continue sliding down. Of course, we did last week as well get the release of the adjusted numbers, which is not too good on the labor front, because it seems that the Bureau of Labor Statistics had been overestimating at least the non-farm payrolls by 818,000 jobs over the past year.
I mean, I know these figures are never accurate, so they're always revised after the fact, after they first come out. But like 818,000, that seems, it's Bureau of Labor Statistics. You got one job.
One job. And no. And the funny thing is, that they actually botched the release of the adjusted numbers as well.
Oh yes.
So basically, they accidentally released the numbers to a select set of banks first before the rest of the market. And this kind of threw the market into disarray. So the BLS is so incompetent. Not only they count the numbers correctly, but they didn't release it correctly. so that's not good for markets, right?
And they were having to give out the figures over the phone to some banks, weren't they? Some banks, I think, were ringing in going, I'm hearing that Morgan Stanley have got the figure. Why haven't we got the figures.
Haven't we bribed you guys enough to give us the numbers before everyone else? It's crazy that they can't even get that right. So that caused a lot of, a bit of a fracas in the markets there. So yeah, I mean, that is a big thing. That is obviously a massive adjustment. So that's why the Fed is potentially looking at the concerns around the labor market now.
Yeah.
Although it does seem that the soft landing is managing to come towards that soft landing, assuming things don't deteriorate too much, because that is, of course, not necessarily, that's for the non-farm payrolls. It's not nearly the unemployment number that's included in that. And then, of course, there's also other central banks are also, the whole central bank easing has begun,
Well, yeah, I mean, some have cut it. The UK cut last month.
Yeah,
The Bank of Canada have cut. The EU, I think, have cut as
EU
well.
have cut. Yeah, we've got this actually on the Financial Times. They have this chart, which I think you guys should take a look at. It's very interesting. So obviously, you can see the all the different central banks and how many have cut and cut and increased rates over the past 4 years. And there's only two outliers there, I would say. And then one of them is obviously Japan, which has had, no change in monetary policy for like the longest time. And when they do change it a little bit, even just a little bit, they kind of throw the markets into complete disarray, absolute carnage. And then, of course, China, which has been, cutting it for quite some time.
Is that to support? So China has this massive real estate market,
exactly,
doesn't it?
Real estate bubble.
Is that why they've tried to sort of keep rates low?
I think it's a part of that. Also, the economy has been slowing a lot, so they need an easier monetary policy. And it isn't fully open in terms of like the monetary policy, in terms of their capital controls and that kind of stuff. So they're more lenient. They can be more lenient when it comes to their, easing in their rates, right?
Okay. So going back to the Fed and Jerome. So obviously, as you said, it was Jackson Hole at the weekend. This big sort of symposium of central bankers. I watched some of Jerome's speech from that. I mean, his tone was quite upbeat, I thought. I mean, I know he doesn't ever try to give too much away, but he seemed very confident that they'd reached, that they were in a good place.
I think he was just feeling a bit of a bit of drink beforehand with all these other central bankers, enjoying and relaxing. Like, oh, guys, now I can finally just release and say what I really think.
You've done some whitewater rafting that morning.
It's like,
felt a bit chilled out.
It's time, guys. It's time. I've put the charade up for long enough now. You guys know we've managed to land the plane on the soft landing. So,
Yeah. Okay. So labor market concerns aside, it looks like 25 bit cut. The next Fed meeting is towards the end of September.
Yep.
So most likely to get 25 basis point cut, then 50 basis points, probably not. And I would say that crypto's kind of priced that in. I mean, that would have been one of the reasons why crypto sort of pumped over the weekend.
I think it was for sure. I mean, it's all obviously, like we said, they'll be data dependent. There are data points coming out. If it is a 50 bip cut, well, that will be even more bullish for us, right?
In theory,
money printer goes faster and faster.
Okay, let's move on then. Let's talk politics.
Oh my God, lovely.
We have to, guys. We have to talk it because it is
such a hot potato,
Yeah, it's
eggshells, avoiding those, the nice.
Yeah, got to be careful what you say when you start talking about politics. But it is kind of dominating not just the sort of regular news cycle at the moment, but also the crypto news cycle as well. So we've got a few updates. We know what Trump's policy towards crypto is at the moment. So a lot of the questions at the moment are, well, what does Kamala Harris plan to do if she wins the election? What are her policies? And there's been some sort of, there's been a lot of speculation around it. We haven't had anything particularly concrete, nothing that concrete relating to crypto, or indeed much else. I mean, the best way that I've seen her campaign described so far is sort of vibes based.
It's vibes, the joy vibes. We're all about the joy to the world.
Which to be fair, seems to have worked fairly well. I mean, I know that her poll lead has slipped in the last few days, if Polymarket is anything to go by. But she certainly has built a lot of momentum. And it does seem, as you can see from that Bloomberg article that we've pulled up on screen there. She does plan to support policies to expand the crypto industry. Now, this is according to an senior campaign advisor for policy to the Harris campaign.
You can tell that the guy basically didn't actually have any concrete thoughts. He just basically, from his quote, he says, she's going to support policies that ensure that emerging technologies and that sort of industry. So whatever you guys, AI,
crypto and that sort of
blockchain,
that
whatever
sort of
you
stuff,
guys stuff. Yeah, she'll do something for you guys, I'm sure. So it would have been cool if she'd mentioned something, if there was more concrete, plans around it, more, clarifications. So it seems that, but the overtures are there. Now, obviously, one crypto industry is obviously quite jaded or skeptical of this, especially very
definitely.
skeptical.
Yeah.
And they have a right to be, obviously. But I think that the fact that there's at least overtures of some description, it's better than the current hostile, climate we have. Anything 100%. Can be better than Gary Gensler and his band of merry men at the SEC, or, Elizabeth Warren out there campaigning with her anti-crypto army. So, I think it's definitely a good sign. But obviously, we need to see more meat on that bone. We need to see what they're talking about. We need to see how they're going to address the issues with the banking regulators around choke point 2.0, around questions, potential bills coming forward. At least on the Democrat side, there's these potential bills that could come out in the next few months related to stablecoin regulation. At least some top Democrats in the Senate are getting on board with this kind of stuff.
Chuck Schumer has pretty much said, was that at the round table?
The round table, yeah, he was there.
I mean, he sort of said that he wants to get this done in this term. Yeah,
so it's a positive overtures for sure. And then that's on the Kamala side, and obviously that's more on the cryptos policy side. Obviously, we also had the news that RFK Jr. had dropped out and now joined or endorsed the Trump campaign.
And RFK is the most pro crypto of all three of those presidential candidates. I mean, I know he's not running now, and he was never in with a shout to win, but certainly his crypto policies were by far the most overt, and he seemed to have the strongest grasp of it all. So I guess, that could have been another reason why we saw crypto up over the weekend, because him joining forces with Trump, that would suggest that if Trump were to win, because I think there's been a lot of speculation, hasn't there? It's like, yes, Trump has made these pro-crypto noises, and that's great, but obviously actions speak louder than words. Yeah. Will he forget about the crypto industry when he gets into the White House? So I guess the idea that RFK Jr. might be a part of his administration if he becomes president suggests that crypto may stay on the agenda.
Yeah, it may stay on the agenda. Maybe he's made the Treasury Secretary, but apparently, and this is according to some sources last week, right? He's apparently considering him for the head of the CIA.
Wow.
So that's what I saw. Like, I don't know if that there was some news headlines of that effect, but that's that's another whole box you're going to open up. But it's interesting as well. Obviously, you mentioned Polymarket. I checked the stats on Polymarket right now. Polymarket's 50-50 coin flip, right, between Harris and Trump. But what I do find interesting, and what I wanted to share as well, is so we've also got, and that's just regards to potentially what the market thinks he's going to win or lose. But this is Deribit, which is obviously Deribit is a options exchange, Bitcoin options exchange, right? And they've released these unique like election options that expire on the 8th of November, which is about 3 days after the election.
Okay.
And it's interesting to take a look at this, because what it shows is kind of like the distribution of the strike prices, eventually, like, when the optionality to buy or sell these options at the expiry date. And what it shows is that the majority of the options that have been written from a perspective of open interest, so the total notional out, the majority of them are call options, so bullish options. People are buying them in the speculation of being higher in price. And the majority of the strikes are above 70,000, 80,000 and beyond. So it's interesting to see that, obviously Polymarket's one way to place a bet on the potential election, but another thing is to see what's going on in the options markets. And it looks like people think that we could potentially be above 70, 80,000 at that time, which could only mean, markets are rallying because of a win from Trump.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that as a different additional data point, and it's interesting to see how they move.
And I guess that kind of fits with a lot of the other speculation that we're seeing, about market cycles, increased liquidity and things like that. This seems to all be part of a picture that suggests crypto is going to end the year strongly, go into 2025, hopefully in pretty good shape.
Yeah, in good shape, on good terms. But speaking of not good news, unfortunately, we also got the news yesterday.
Yes.
And this relates to us very much in crypto, because Pavel Durov, you guys obviously haven't been following the news, but all over. Pavel Durov, who's obviously the CEO of Telegram and the founder, he was arrested at a French airport stepping off his private jet. Not the best Greek individual, not necessarily what you would expect climbing up a private jet. But yeah, so he was arrested. And this relates to crypto because, Telegram is a very popular app in cryptocurrency circles.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it's a question around, censorship and censorship resistance of deep blockchains and everything like that, and the ideals of cryptocurrency. Also, he's a UAE citizen. We're based in the UAE. Telegram is based in the UAE. And more specifically, there's the questions around, okay, what about the cryptocurrency projects that are, building within Telegram or integrating with Telegram?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what do you think about this development? I mean,
I think first of all, there are a lot of questions around it. I mean, we're still a little bit short on information. From what I've read and heard, the charges, I mean, they sound very serious. They relate to illegal actions on Telegram, and there's a whole gamut of them. Fraud, money laundering, terrorism, and worse stuff besides. So it's very serious charges on the face of it. Obviously, these relate, though, to content moderation or a lack thereof on Telegram itself. And I mean, I've heard that these are very early days, so we have to be sort of careful with speculation. But, the figure of 20 years has been thrown around, 20 years in jail if he's found guilty. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves on that one. But yeah, I mean, Telegram is kind of a Wild West in a way. I mean, it's become so popular with so many diverse groups, groups from all sorts of ends of the spectrum. Obviously, it's become, I guess, notorious, if you like, because it's being used so much in Ukraine. I mean, it's wildly popular in Russia, where Pavel's obviously from, and where he was sort of forced out of back in 2014. But I mean, there are still a lot of questions. Like, I think for me, probably the main question around this is like, is this French authorities acting unilaterally? Because Pavel is French and he has French citizenship.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it was you were saying earlier, I mean, it's not entirely clear how he got that.
No, so basically I was reading, he got it by a special program where if you are a famous person or, popular or, famous person, you got money or what, generally that's what it is when money helps a lot with these things.
Right.
Money or like a well-known figure or something to that effect, and you're very fluent in French and you speak very good French. Apparently there's a route, there's a backdoor bonjour for you. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the exact specifics of this program, but that's apparently it. Yeah.
Okay. So all right. So I mean, but that I think is pertinent to the question because he has dual French and Emirati nationality. Emirati nationality is not easy to get.
No.
You've got to speak Arabic for one thing.
Really?
Yeah, you've got to speak very good Arabic. So Pavel is obviously a multilingual.
Is that why you've been learning Arabic?
Exactly. Badly, I should say as well. So is this France acting unilaterally? Is this the French authorities, or are they in cahoots with the US, the EU, the UK, all of the above?
I think it's a tough one. I think that it's hard to imagine this just being a move by the French, right? It's like, there would have had to have been discussions because Telegram is global, right? What I think is interesting here is the fact that he travels regularly in Europe, right? That's known. And apparently, this is according to some French news sources, he apparently knew that there was this potential warrant out.
Okay.
Apparently. Now, I don't know if that's true. I read it in some. This is what is quoted in some French news articles, which means that either he didn't choose to fly there, and his pilots took a reroute.
Wow.
Which is what happened to that Mexican cartel guy a month ago, when they took a detour across the US border for him. The pilot's unforced stop right now. And the other is potentially he did it of his own volition. But, it's a very fluid situation. We don't know. Obviously, Telegram said, the Telegram came out with a announcement that, they follow all laws. And there's all these questions also around the censorship. Should we censor anything? Just because bad users and bad people are using a product or service. If you use a Mercedes-Benz to drive over somebody or to commit a bank robbery, or same thing with gun manufacturers, for instance, right? There's the question of how can you be held liable for the actions of bad people using your platform? And I think the question is obviously, so they wanted moderation, and he was a very strong and anti-censorship. He left Russia, he fled Russia to be able to, keep it open and free. And he actually sold out of his previous company. Now, it's a situation now.
Well, he was forced to sell out of VK, wasn't he?
At least they let him leave. And then I hear it's like the French are like just arresting him, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
And apparently the Russian consulate is sort of trying to get access to him. And I would imagine he probably doesn't. That's the last thing you want, really.
Well, I mean, it's interesting as well because, and this is actually, I don't know if there's a tweet, if you guys can put it, there's a tweet that we have of Jeff Garzik, who's a Bitcoin core dev. And he basically said, this is really interesting. The Russian army in Ukraine they use Telegram for their communications, right? So I don't know. I mean, this is interesting. Potentially, there's also, this is why it comes back to the question, could it have been coordinated? Could they have wanted, because also that potentially they're, like the Russian Secret Service could be using it in Europe to conduct these operations. There was news and reports that the French weren't very happy with the Russians prior to this for other sorts of spying and everything. So there's that theory as well. There's many theories out there. It's a very fluid situation. We don't want to jump to conclusions, and more news will definitely come from it. Yeah. What I think is obviously another question, this brings it back to crypto as well, and obviously what people have been talking about, especially in the crypto space, because there's obviously Toncoin, right? It's a very big what does this mean for Toncoin? And if we did a Toncoin review about 2 months ago, not 2 months ago, like about a month ago, and it was talked about this. Obviously, the whole purpose of Toncoin was to try and be completely independent of Telegram. That was the whole goal. They wanted to make sure that there wasn't this association, because they wanted to be a completely independent ecosystem that people could build on. But obviously, the main bull case for Toncoin was that they would integrate with the super app that is Telegram, integrate all these payment features, right? So the question then is, okay, well, what does this mean for the adoption potentially of Toncoin? If there's going to be potential curbs on Telegram, what's Telegram going to look like, depending on what happens with Pavel and all that?
And how close is that relationship of Toncoin to Telegram? Because it's such a difficult circle to square, isn't it? Because on the one hand, Toncoin wants to distance itself from Telegram as much as possible. Even before this happened, it would make sense. And especially when you go back to 2017 and that sort of that ICO that they conducted, that they have to give all the money back. That was such a disaster. So it makes sense that they would want to be distanced from Telegram. But then at the same time, as you said, like, Toncoin's whole USP is that it is attached to this, it's attached at the hip, supposedly, to this already wildly popular app. And of course, then, you have the question of, and I wonder if this played any part in the arrest as well. Obviously, Toncoin and Tether signed an agreement pretty recently, USDT on Toncoin. So Toncoin is clearly going down this sort of payments route. And is that something that authorities are worried about as well? Is this just a question of free speech, of unmoderated content? Is it a question of getting access to high level intelligence, or is it the fact that Toncoin is a big threat to the status quo as far as payments are concerned, or all of the above?
Combination potentially of all of the above, Yeah, I guess more, and just coming back to Toncoin one more time, obviously we know, if you watch that review, and you would know, and this is all publicly available on Toncoin Explorers, is that there's presence of big whales there. Yeah. And the question is, who controls those wallets, right? Are they related to the Telegram ecosystem? So yeah, it's interesting. And there is one potential parallel that could be drawn if you want to try and draw something with Toncoin, Telegram, Pavel. It's BNB and Binance and CZ. Right? Yes. So after the news of Binance's settlement in November last year, and BNB fell like 20% in the immediate aftermath. Mm-hmm. But a month later, it was traded sideways for about a month, and then about 2 months later, it was up. It was up again at the actual price it was before it fell, and now it's up by 190%, right? Because CZ's coming out. So I guess the question is, was this the market freaking out beforehand? Is there still potential in Toncoin? It's hard to tell right now because of the fact that we don't exactly know what's going on with Pavel and what's going on with Telegram. But it's one of these things where the market could have freaked out, but preemptively. Yeah.
I mean, it's the sort of thing that crypto does very well. You get news like that, and it's just a volatile asset class already, and you throw something like that into the mix. The only other question I have then is what is Pavel's involvement with Toncoin, if any? I think that is definitely going to be relevant in some degree to how well Toncoin performs. Does Pavel just work on Telegram? Is he involved with Toncoin at all? I mean, there's a chance that he owns probably quite a lot of Ton.
He owns there's a chance potentially there are Toncoin whales. I don't think he's nearly as involved. I think he's trying to separate it from it 100%. So that, whereas in the case of Binance and BNB, like CZ's made it clear he wants to build and work and build on Binance. So yeah.
Okay, let's move on then, because crypto doesn't just happen in the United States. Yeah. Funnily enough, it's happening in other countries too. So this is a story. There's a few stories wrapped up in this bit, but the first is that a Solana ETF has been approved.
Yeah, I saw this news headline. I was like, "What? No ways! Can I believe it? Was it Van Eck? Did they manage to sneak it through the SEC? No longer security questions and all this, and then Brazil. Okay,
it's in Brazil.
Okay, yeah, you got to read the whole headline. You know,
always finish reading the headline.
Always
folks.
before you go and put your leverage longs on.
there's some inside alpha for you. But yeah, Brazil does have a bit of form when it comes to this. Brazil was one of the first countries. I think Canada actually got there first, but Brazil was one of the first countries to introduce a spot Bitcoin ETF back in 2021. I actually met at the Bitcoin conference in Miami in 2021, I think it was, maybe 22. One of the guys who was involved with launching that, I think it was launched via Hashdex.
Yeah, Hashdex.
Which is, they've got almost $1 billion AUM. And I think they're the ones issuing this one as well.
Yeah, and it's great to see. I think that Brazil is one of the LATAM countries with a massive adoption. I think that from the perspective of an EM country, and I think that obviously this makes sense, right? Like in terms of demand to utilize Solana and payments and everything, and potentially, and it's good to see that at least. I wonder if there's many other countries. I wonder if which other countries have Solana-based ETFs. I know there's ETPs. There's a few ETPs in Europe potentially.
Possibly.
I know that Coin, one of the tracking sites tracks the ETP flows.
Okay.
I think that's interesting. Hopefully. But now, obviously, everyone's concerned about or wondering what's happening with the US side of the ETF. Now they're mentioning ETFs, we may as well just mention, obviously, because last week we also got the news that some of these 19B4 forms that exchanges have for Solana ETFs had been, rejected because apparently the ETF issuers, like we said, when we covered this when they first released that the applications, Van Eck, and I think the other one, and we thought this is a bit premature. These S1 applications.
This is a bit of a Hail Mary.
And apparently, according to Eric Balkunas, is obviously a Bloomberg ETF analyst, he said they jumped the gun. DOA.
Oh yes.
DOA.
Yeah. And never made it past step 2.
Yeah.
So I think we're a way off then. If we work by the Brazil timing, so if Brazil introduced a spot Bitcoin ETF in 2021, that would suggest we've got 3 years to wait.
3 years, yeah.
So there you are, 3 years until the Solana ETF, which, to be fair, probably sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably also right based on like the timelines you go in terms of having a CME futures product and having enough of timeline to test the data. The SEC is comfortable with the data on the trading of these instruments. The same timeline we kind of saw. The only question then comes into like, if we're going to have pro-crypto regulations for 21, this kind of stuff that comes in Trump presidency, then that could potentially give the right circumstances and to speed run the applications potentially. So that's unfortunately no nearer on the US side.
Okay.
But we've got other adoption here in other countries as well. Speaking of adoption, Dubai. Right over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in Dubai, as you can see from the headline there, Dubai court recognizes crypto as valid salary payment. And also at the same time, it seems to have been a sort of double whammy of Dubai news. Tether is launching an AED, a dirham pegged stablecoin as well.
Top notch, man. And it's interesting also about the news on the actual crypto payment, right? If we go back to that news, that tweet, is actually the source of that information was a Dubai lawyer who we actually interviewed on the clip.
Irina
Hiva. And the case itself was pretty interesting in the sense that the employee had a contract and apparently they were getting paid a normal fiat salary, and they were also supposed to get compensation in EcoWatts token. And apparently the employee was very upset because they didn't get their allocation of EcoWatts program. I couldn't find in EcoWatts EcoWatts tokens. I couldn't find EcoWatts tokens on. So I don't know how much value that have been, but it's interesting because obviously it's a kind of sense of precedent, and it means that the courts in Dubai, the labor courts, will view crypto payments as a form of payment that can be held in law. And obviously, the news of Tether launching a dirham-backed stablecoin is great for adoption in the region, local adoption, because obviously we know lots of people here use Tether extensively in other ways, but here it's an opportunity for potentially local financial institutions to potentially integrate a stablecoin which is backed by dirhams, and the government approves of as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I wonder though, I think the Castle Island Ventures guys were talking about this last week. How much adoption is an AED backed stablecoin or AED pegged stablecoin really going to get? Because at the moment it's just dollar stablecoins. We do have these other stablecoins. We have a euro stablecoin, and there are various other ones as well. But it's all about the dollar backed stablecoins, really. And obviously crypto is denominated in dollars, isn't it? We never talk about the price of Bitcoin in GBP or euros or anything else. It's always, it's past 60K in dollars.
Yeah.
So I guess, this seems to be from Tether, Tether introducing an AED stablecoin. It seems to be one piece of a very large puzzle that is still sort of incomplete. Because, if you take Dubai as an example, most of the people here, the local population is very small. Most of the people here are migrant workers. So there'll be a lot of people sending remittances back to all corners of the world. But so on the face of it, a dirham peg stablecoin is good news, is a big step forward. But do we not need to have sort of more stablecoin? For instance, a Pakistani rupee stablecoin, so as a Pakistani person working here in the UAE can easily remit, can change their AEDT to a Pakistani rupee stablecoin and send money back to their family easily, without having to remit it via Western Union.
Yeah, this is down to the countries themselves and the central banks themselves if they're comfortable with this, and it's there's no reason for them not to do it. And I think that the point around, is it going to be a much demand for it? I think nowhere near, right? Anything that you'll see for same thing we've seen with a euro-backed stablecoin, right? People are, if you're a crypto trader, if you're a trader, or if you make payments globally. If you do trade with Tether, which people do, if you're doing OTC transactions, large amounts, you're probably just going to do it in the one that's most liquid, that's USDT. But obviously the question then is locally. That's what I'm saying. I think it's if you want to be able to pay for, coffee, use it as a medium of exchange. And same thing in Europe, the governments will be way more likely and more willing to adopt and allow a stable coin that's backed by the original currency, fiat currency, right? And this is why I think that who knows what it could happen with this, but I think it's got way more opportunity to be integrated within traditional banking rails here in Dubai, in Dirham, because it is a dirham-backed stablecoin. And it's also with a partner, I think, is Phoenix. It's one of these very big fintech company here in Dubai, which obviously has all the good connections.
Well, the government are going to like it if it's being backed by by native assets.
By native assets, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so just one more bit of sort of crypto from around the world news, if you like. Russia is reportedly planning its own sort of, I think, state-backed crypto exchange that will support various BRICS currencies and crypto, of course. This seems to be specifically for the purposes of international trade. And if you've been keeping up with kind of BRICS developments and sort of crypto developments in general, you'll know that Russia has been exploring this idea of using crypto for international trade for a while now, I think. Obviously, because of its been hit with very heavy sanctions, and there are of course other sanctioned countries, Iran springing to mind, that are also exploring this sort of thing. And I know this is something that a lot of people, find unsavory, and it can be a sort of uncomfortable fact about crypto, that it's being used for sort of purposes that not everyone is all that happy with. But someone made a really good point recently, and it was like, well, this is the stage. These are the stages that we go through with crypto, because Bitcoin had no real use case until Silk Road came along.
Yeah.
And obviously, that was Silk Road. You could get all sorts of stuff there. And it wasn't perhaps what Satoshi had intended, but it demonstrated proof of concept. And it kind of feels that Russia or other countries using crypto to circumvent sanctions, using it for international trade or whatever, it may not be what it was intended for, but it does show that, there is money outside. There are viable forms of money, of value transfer outside of the traditional system.
Value transfer and a storehold of wealth. Because let's not recall the U.S. What they did to the Russian central bank post invasion, and they basically seized their assets, all their reserves held in other central banks. Something that was many people could never have thought possible. Right, you actually seizing the foreign assets of another central bank, and it had a massive wake up for a lot of countries who basically, if I ever stand on the wrong side of whatever the hegemony the USA wants, right? Are my reserves at risk? Are my gold assets at risk? So it's like necessity is the mother of invention, and it's definitely if it works, it's a proof of concept. Next year we'll also have the potential for central banks to stack crypto 2025 when the BIS said that they could start stacking crypto. So it'll be interesting to see if we can have some more nation state adoption and central bank adoption of cryptocurrencies and the benefits it can bring for completely permissionless without any,
I think so. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk very briefly about Bitcoin dominance, and then we will get to last week's top gainers. Some token unlocks, some tweets of the week, things for your diary and stuff. But we'll just quickly look at the last bit of news that we wanted to focus on today. This is something that friend of the channel, Ben Cowan, will be delighted about. Well, I mean, this article, I think, from Cointelegraph actually quotes Ben, doesn't it?
Yeah, it quotes Ben. It's like realized the Mr. Bitcoin Dominance himself is making the news, right? Yeah, and it's so what Bitcoin. He's saying that Bitcoin could go back up to 70% again. This article came out slightly. This came out before the end of the week when the Fed was being dovish. I checked in on Ben's recent tweets, and he said that basically it's could go up to 60 by the end of this year, but next year he sees it falling a lot in 2025, and that's obviously when Bitcoin dominance starts falling, it's altcoin dominance picking up, or altcoin season, potentially a precursor to altcoin season. I think it's also important here why if we've got a chart here of the Bitcoin dominance trading view. Previously, I think it's important to realize Bitcoin dominance reached up to 70% in the previous peak, and now I think there are no ways it can reach that, obviously, because of the fact that we've got stable coins as well. So that's also you need to factor stable coins into your calculations of Bitcoin dominance now, I think, which is what Ben has mentioned and which we've also got charts for. But so obviously the Bitcoin dominance starts turning. That's potentially the precursor to altcoin season, and that could start coming early next year or the end of even this year, based on if we have easier monetary conditions and a whole lot of other factors. Obviously, another factor that's been driving the performance of Bitcoin dominance has not necessarily in the small altcoin space. I saw actually some data tweet. I don't have it here, unfortunately, but the smaller altcoins have been performing very well relative to Bitcoin, whereas or better than bigger altcoins. So the main drivers of the fall of the rise in Bitcoin dominance has been the underperformance of large altcoins, more specifically ETH. Right. So ETH has just been, unfortunately, underperforming for many factors, which we've talked about ad nauseum. We don't want to dive into here. But if Bitcoin dominance does start falling towards the end of the year, well, then we can altcoin season, baby.
Yeah, that's something people have got to watch. Bitcoin dominance, it gets talked about a lot. I know a lot of people's eyes tend to glaze over when people start going on about it, but it is such an important metric to keep an eye on, because as Nick says, once Bitcoin dominance starts declining, that's when only then can we really start to talk about alt season. Exactly. If Bitcoin dominance is holding steady, alt season just ain't happening. Yeah. So keep an eye on that. Okay, let's move on then. So that's all the news pieces that we wanted to talk about today. There's so much happening in crypto. It's hard to choose just a few to talk about. But I wanted to touch very briefly on last week's top performing altcoins. So last week's top gainers were Popcat, Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Render, Sats, and Dog with Hat. Just quickly, Popcat appeared to pump because it was listed on Binance Futures and also on KuCoin.
Degen's going long, man.
Yeah,
100x on a meme coin called Popcat.
Absolutely, Degen's with yet more access. Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. There was the announcement of a development fund by Fetch.ai, which is one of the entities involved with artificial SA. But I think it's more likely hype around Nvidia's earnings, which are due on, let me check, I think it's Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Nvidia's latest earnings are on Wednesday. We'll talk about those in a couple of minutes, but that seems to be the reason why Artificial Superintelligence Alliance pumped. Ditto for Render as well. Coinbase also announced a perpetual futures listing for RNDR last week as well. So combined with a bit of AI hype around NVIDIA, that explains Render. Sats, we couldn't find a clear reason why Sats was pumping, possibly just following sort of Bitcoin's momentum. And then Dog with Hats, meme coins in general did really well. If you look at the sort of top gainers, the larger table of top gainers, there were meme coins everywhere. Dog with Hat was the highest of the lot, really, apart from Popcat. It seems its largest whale, Look On Chain spotted that the largest whiff whale was loading up with even more, so that could have given it some bullish
people
momentum.
Just watching that and then trading, like trying to trade it on chain,
yeah. Exactly degen's gonna degen. So that is this week's top performing, or last week's top performing altcoins, I should say. Nick, can you give us a sneak preview of this week's token unlocks?
So basically, guys, we got this data from our friends over at Token Unlocks. They obviously have a premium account which you can purchase on a monthly subscription, which gives you access to all of the other information and more granular details in the unlocks. But this week we've got 3 unlocks. We got YGG, which is Yield Guild Games, and they have got a 14 million token unlock, which is about 6.4 million USD, which is 3.7% of the circulating supply. So it's not too much, but it's reasonable amount. Then we've got obviously Optimism, $47 million worth of unlocks, 2.6% of circulating supply. And finally, a SUI unlock, which is $62 million worth at 2.4% of the supply. Now, I do want to go into a tiny bit of a rant about these token unlocks, because it was mentioned we did the SUI review last week, right? And obviously, SUI unlock is coming, and some people made the comments, okay, well, we've got the SUI unlock, you should have mentioned it. We actually did. We said that the price projections factored in the unlocks, and they weren't nearly as big as the unlock in May, which is true. The unlock in May was a big cliff. But I think, and I actually did a Discord post about this for the Coin Bureau Club members, and I'll share a snippet for that to you guys over here. And I was basically like trying to attack the mid curve on the talk about the unlocks. And I think it's important to factor in, to look at unlocks more broadly in terms of not only the size, obviously related to circulating supply. 2.4 is not a massive amount. Also how regular they are. So it's basically like, this is a monthly unlock, right? So it's not like a massive cliff, and it's not like people were waiting to dump. And then if there's anybody in general, if they have, there's a pretty healthy OTC market these days for all types of locked tokens. So if a holder really wants to sell for any sort of reason, they can sell on the open market, maybe a discount, but that's the case. But also, you also need to look more granularly. If you go back to the stats from Token Unlocks quickly, you need to look more granularly at where the tokens are being unlocked to. So obviously, there's the Series A and Series B investors, but there's also things like Mist and Labs Treasury, which they can use to help grow the ecosystem. There's a community reserve. So I think that when people look at these unlocks, they need to dive into a bit more detail, and obviously take a look at the size of the cliff, right? If it's a massive unlock, it could be a potential issue. But one more fact to point out here is the fact that most people, when it comes to unlocks, and this is a study done by Token Unlocks last year, they sell preemptively in FUD of the unlock, and the people actually, the people with the tokens being unlocked don't really dump as much as those who sell in preemptively for it. So the FUD around Token Unlocks is more so than the unlocks themselves. And there is one more thing I want to point out here, and that's that there was a pretty massive unlock for a very well-known L1 in 2021. And this was Solana's crazy unlocks. And I just want to show you the size of that cliff there in January 2021. And we talked about this, and many people covered this, and it's like, that's a massive unlock. But since that unlock, Solana reached an all-time high. It was 120 times up from that unlock at its all-time high price. And it's now up about 70 times. So, that being the fact, don't FUD the unlocks too much. Obviously, it's important to factor in your analysis, right? Because it will be an additional supply, it will be dilution. Put that into your account, put it into your tick box and your check box for analysis. but you need to dive a bit more deeper into the actual unlocks themselves. So we've basically got, if you're a Coin Bureau Club member, you can get a 50% discount on token unlocks. I would recommend checking out their tools. They're very helpful. And yeah, it helps you get more of a granular look at what's going on with these unlocks.
Okay, that is token unlocks. So no massive ones this week, but it's always a good thing to be aware of. Okay, let's look now at some of last week's top tweets.
There we go. That's the
one. So we've got this one from Bitcoin Magazine. What are we looking at here, Nick?
We are looking at, so this is from, they basically say, now this just shows the slow and granular accumulation, slow moving accumulation of institutional accumulation of Bitcoin ETF holdings, right? 60% of the world's largest hedge funds have disclosed Bitcoin ETF holdings. That's a top tier list right there. And what's also interesting, you pointed it out earlier, was the fact that for the ones that they that haven't accumulated yet, it says not yet instead of instead of yes.
I like that's a nice touch from Bitcoin Magazine, assuming it's them who made that. Yes,
smart. Waiting when ETF, yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, and it's interesting to see. And this is these are well known names in crypto. I mean, well known names in TradFi. Citadel. I mean, Millennium. 0.72 with Steve Cohen. DE Shaw, massive quant hedge fund. Blue Crest.
Blue Crest have only got 9.
I know it's a small. I mean, it's look. I mean, the point of the matter is the fact that they've actually managed to go through their investment committee and actually allocate it to a Bitcoin ETF. It's small. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's just a more evidence that the slow accumulation of Bitcoin is taking place amongst TradFi investors, and they that's what I say. So obviously, I think you guys should go and tag these other hedge funds that haven't got it yet from this tweet and say when
Bridgewater. So it's Ray Dalio Co.
Yeah, I would have thought that
Ray hasn't been orange pilled yet.
I would have thought he was, right? Yeah, that's interesting.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Bitcoin Magazine. The next tweet of the week. This is something of a rarity value. This probably has been turned into an NFT by now. Vitalik
bull posting.
In classic Vitalik style, I've been told that I need to do less philosophizing and do more Ethereum bull posting. Hence, here's an Ethereum bull post, courtesy of Stable Diffusion. There we are. And
that shows
kept it simple.
It's kept it simple. It shows you how much the Ethereum community was dying for some, that this turned into the ultimate, symbol of the bull, of the Ethereum bull returning, a bull with a very placid bull, not even like an angry bull, not even a matador kind of bull, very chilled bull, kind of, and he's got with this little Ethereum is good, not okay, it's good, but
I mean, hasn't really worked, but it's. I'm sure it's improved morale.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. Yeah, it has. Yeah.
Okay, so Vitalik, a rare bull post from Vitalik. Next tweet of the week is this one from Victor. Victor is a great analyst, by the way, DeFi villain. He's got a great Telegram channel, and he obviously has a great Twitter as well. I like this. I like this meme that he's posted regarding. I mean, this is obviously relating to what we're seeing with Pavel.
Yeah,
and
Pavel.
Telegram.
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean, it's many other, not just. I mean, for instance, the NSA, any sort of state entity that's basically trying to limit freedoms on the internet in any form, can try and wrap it in anything, right? But and this is the same thing. For instance, think about the bills that were passed after 9/11, right? In terms of the restrictions on freedom, and that was all wrapped in the anti-terrorism wrapper.
Yeah.
And now it seems they're trying to control internet here with Pavel, and they're trying to wrap it in all amounts of wrappers and box it up.
I like the way Uncle Sam's sort of looking a bit shifty with his shades on as well.
I think he looks just like one of these three-letter agents, like this.
Yeah.
Kind of like, he's probably a CIA
Speaking
agent.
into his lapel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that is a great tweet from Victor. Eric Voorhees, the walls seem to be closing in around civilization, don't they? This is obviously in relation to Telegram as well.
Yeah, scary, man, scary.
It is scary. Lots of worrying implications for free speech.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? Because if you can be idealistic and you can travel when you can leave your native country and move somewhere else because of your ideals, and then you build something massive like Telegram, and then you snatched off your.
I guess the bigger you get, the bigger the target on your back.
Yeah, that's true.
I imagine Elon Musk is revising any plans he might have to travel to the EU or the UK. Probably not that he has any. But okay, so that is Eric Voorhees. And was there one more tweet of the week to look at? Oh, yeah.
This is true. This
So
is true.
whenever something big happens in crypto, Justin Sun is never far away.
Not just crypto, in general.
In general, yeah.
In general.
He just loves to be involved. So this is him. He's proposing a DAO set up to help #free Pavel, and he's donated. He said he'd donate $1 million with enough community support.
Yeah, and the comment by Based Carbon was, anything that happens anywhere, and this is actually an older tweet from last year, so that's interesting. Anything that happens anywhere, Justin Sun, I have a lot of money and I'm part of this conversation.
I mean, he became part of the conversation around FTX. He was
FTX.
talking about buying that.
He was talking about buying that, exactly. And I remember when, this is back 3 years ago, when Binance was talking about the FUD fund. If CZ was talking about launching a FUD fund to fight FUD, and Justin's like in the replies, I'm going to contribute to it. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if it's a FUD that helps to fight FUD, I mean,
or helps free Pavel Durov. I mean, I imagine Pavel's probably all right for his legal fees.
I'm sure he's got
being a multi-billionaire and all, but heart's in the right place. Okay, let's look very quickly then at some upcoming events in crypto and elsewhere this week. So tomorrow on Tuesday, we have a crypto-specific thing. It is Cardano's Chang hard fork. This has been eagerly anticipated by the Cardano community, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's mainly a governance upgrade. So control of the blockchain is going to move from input-output global IOG, and it's going to move over to ADA holders. So this is the beginning. This will be the beginning of the Voltaire era of governance. And I imagine those ADA holders will be more than willing to have their say on everything.
I couldn't have waited, just been waiting for this moment to vote in those forums. That's the moment that they can come.
This is what they live for. So as I say, mainly a governance upgrade. I think there's also going to be some improvements to TPS and finality. The smart contract platform, they've got Plutus V3 rolling out.
That's cool.
And
that's
some
good.
security upgrades as well. So it's pretty big one for Cardano. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, that's due to go ahead as planned tomorrow. I know that all the stake pools were pretty much ready to go. I think Charles was complaining that the exchanges were being a bit slow off the mark on that. So hopefully they've got their house in order then there, and the Chang hard fork can go ahead without a hitch. And then on Wednesday, what's happening Wednesday?
Wednesday, we've got the, obviously, as we mentioned, the NVIDIA earnings, right?
Yes.
This is a massive event for the stock markets, right? It's obviously everyone's focused on this because not only for what it means for NVIDIA's, the earnings for the company itself, but what they're going to do around AI. And just to give you an example of how much volatility this could be, like options prices potentially say that we could see swings in terms of 10% up or down when it comes to the actual earnings in NVIDIA stock in terms of the option pricing.
Wow.
So it's mainly people are focused on what it's going to mean in terms of like what is NVIDIA going to say around the growth of AI and whether they're going to be investing more in AI. Because obviously that impacts on all, a lot of other like they provide like data centers and all these other providers of AI tech and infrastructure. So that's coming on Wednesday.
Okay, then Friday it is the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. That is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So that will give Jerome some more precious data to work with. So keep an eye on that. I don't think there are going to be any massive surprises when it comes to the PCE, but these are the sort of things we have to keep an eye on these days. And then on Sunday, it is
the Korea Blockchain Week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that begins. So this is going to be obviously, this could be a few announcements. I know the SUI potentially making some announcements there. And obviously, as you know, Korea has a very, the Korean traders are very degen, and it has an outsized impact in terms of crypto adoption on a per capita basis. So it'll be interesting to see what announcements are made at the summit.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the things to look out for this week. This week's Coin Bureau Club altcoin review will be Streamer, a decentralized data broadcasting protocol. That's going to be an interesting one to look into there. Coin Bureau Club, obviously the place where you can find all of our top quality altcoin reviews, micro caps, small caps, medium caps, a whole lot. You can see some of the ones that we've reviewed in recent weeks there.
It's interesting that they managed to get that data ticker. That's a very valuable ticker.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Streamer's ticker is data. Okay, and a little and finally item that I found just as I was getting ready to do the stream. Another headline from Cointelegraph. Not good news, I'm afraid, guys. Not good news. Men in crypto less attractive to women than cosplayers and anime buffs.
You know what?
According to a survey.
It was interesting because the actual survey, as I tweeted about this, the unattractives of male nerd hobbies, and I said, well, thankfully, it's not a hobby. I work full time in crypto. It's like. But then there's also like Funko, like, you know.
I had to look up what Funko was. I thought, I was really worried. I thought, is this gonna pollute my Google history? This is going to turn out to be something absolutely awful. But it's
So I need to stop my openers like,
heads.
I work in crypto. You know, I'm in
crypto. I work in crypto. It's not a hobby. I work in it. What are the other ones there? Cosplay,
comic books,
video games, MTG. What was
Dungeons and Dragons. Is that Dungeons and Dragons?
Is that Magic the Gathering?
Dungeons and Dragons kind of like Magic the Gathering. So we basically if you have crypto as a hobby, you're less interesting than someone who talks about card games like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Stamps collecting.
Yeah. Terrible. I'm shocked to see reading on there at all. Can you imagine like not fancying someone because they read?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, fortunately, only a handful of
1.9%
women in that Philistine. Okay, so that's the good news to end on, if you like.
Yeah.
So, and do we have some feedback from some of our viewers? So
from last week, yeah.
So these are some comments from last week's live stream. Worldwide Quest says, "Great new format, much more inviting and less formal."
No suit, yeah, exactly.
No suit, yeah. And Cool New One says, "This version is more interesting to watch, so keep doing this more often." Well, that's what we've done.
Here we are. Yeah.
And do we have any more? 3 minutes in today, it's been confirmed it doesn't skip leg day. We've had to move the desk forward this week. Nick's legs were poking out.
Interesting that people were watching. Yeah, I mean, well, it is true. Nick does not skip leg day. Never skip leg day, guys. You can't do that.
I hate leg day.
But it's interesting because maybe it's like, it could be, one's to make sure people know I don't skip leg day, and the other is you guys are constantly wondering if I'm actually wearing pants to this news. But no, I can't wear. I am. But no, it's too hot to wear. I don't know how you manage to. You have long.
Well, I've got long trousers on just because I don't do leg day.
No, I don't know how you manage to actually walk around. Although you drive in though, to be honest, so it's not that bad.
Too hot to go outside. Yeah. Okay, so that is about it for this week's Coin Bureau News live stream. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all your comments. We will review some of your feedback next week as well. Please do keep that feedback coming in, and have a great week.
Amazing week ahead. Cheers, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes.